My name is Amanda Seawatts, and I specialize in helping accountants and bookkeepers to grow and scale an accountancy practice. I love marketing and branding. That's my specialism. So what we're talking about today is all about how to get the right offer in your accounting practice so that you can then grow and scale using marketing techniques so that you can have what I call a freedom practice. Which I suppose leads me nicely onto what we're going to talk about today. So I'm just going to share my screen. Can you hear me okay? And can you see me okay? Can you let me know in the chat box that you can see and hear me okay? That would be great. Yes, all good for you. Great. And the volume's all right, because I know that I was a little quiet the other day when I was holding one. Okay, fab. Hello, Linda. How are you? All right, so what we're going to be talking about today is up-leveling the profession and leveraging your advisory services. And we're going to be looking at advisory services in a completely different way to maybe the way you've thought about it before. And I actually had a message from a lady yesterday on my LinkedIn who said to me, oh, I've read your book, Practice Growth Superpowers, and it has changed the way I'm now going to run my practice. So what I hope for you today, is that we're going to give you a little bit of food for thought. I'm not expecting you to come all the way with me on this food for thought, although a lot of my clients have implemented it and it has really changed the profits that they've got in the practice and actually how they run their practice. So either come with me the whole way or just think about it, because it is a completely new way of doing things. All right. So this is what I talk about when I am saying that we're going to have a new way of running your accountancy practice. So I've got a friend, he's based in Canada. He runs a CPA business and it's big. It's a big old business. And a couple of years ago, he had a CPA accounting firm that had a £3 million turnover. And then he also had part of his firm that had a £1 million turnover. So they were two separate arms to his business, the traditional compliance side and then his advisory side. Okay, so he had a 3 million turnover and a 1 million turnover. Now, for the 3 million turnover side of his business, he had 40 staff on his books that were helping him produce £3 million, dollars. Okay, on the 1 million turnover, it was him and a small team. And by a small team, I mean a couple of admin people. Okay. Then with his 3 million turnover, he had hundreds and hundreds of clients, but with his £1 million turnover, he had 32 clients. Okay. It took him 78,000 hours of delivery to serve the hundreds of clients that gave him £3 million. Now, not him, but him and his team. Okay. In the £1 million turnover side of his arm, the advisory side, it was 480 hours of delivery. Okay, so you can see where I'm going with this. He per hour had $39 an hour earnings from the work that he was doing in his 3 million turnover business, and $2,000 an hour earnings on his advisory side of the business. It was very compliance based on the 3 million turnover, and it was what we call leveraged advisory. And I'm going to be sharing with you today about leveraged advisory. And there are two different sides of his business. One is a traditional accounting firm. The one that had 3 million turnover was a traditional accounting firm. But I call this a monster business. And the reason why it's a monster business is because it's very high revenue, high turnover, high revenue. Okay. Here in the UK, we call it turnover. In America and Canada and everywhere, you call it revenue. Okay. So it had very high revenue, but it had a lot of staff and it was very, very difficult to look after the hundreds and hundreds of clients. On the other side of his business, which was him and a couple of admin people, he had 1 million turnover, and it's what I call a freedom practice. Now, on the face of it, the traditional monster business is what we talk about when we run an accounting or CPA firm. On the right-hand side with the freedom practice, this is a whole new way about thinking about things. And just let me know in the chat box, have you ever even considered that you could earn in your practice $2,000 or £2,000 an hour for the work that you do? Let me just bring up the Q&A, not the Q&A, the chat box, sorry. And in the chat box, just comment freedom, if freedom is the kind of practice that you run, or monster, if that's the kind of practice that you run or you're building or you're familiar with. Let me know in the chat box. Okay, and let me just go and make sure that everybody's still coming in. Monster but want freedom, says Molly. Monster, says Fozia. Okay, all right. So this is a traditional accountancy firm, and it's not your fault really at all that this is what you're creating, because that is what you have been taught, and that's what the past has told you to create. Okay, now I've hashtag his name is Ben, but it's not Ben, okay? But what we want to understand that if we want to go from creating a monster business and having a freedom practice, we have to open our mind up to think about things in a different way. So I could teach you how to get lots of clients. Like the most clients I've ever got in 1 week was 147 clients. That's how many clients I brought into my business. So I know how to get clients, and I can teach you how to get clients. I can do that with my eyes closed. What is a whole new thing for you to get your head around is getting the right clients that are going to pay you the right money and having your practice set up in the right way. So the way that we have the ability to earn $2,000 or £2,000 an hour is through what I call leveraged advisory. Okay, so we have to have a mindset shift from technician, which is your traditional accountancy firm, to a CEO, to running a business in a different way. Okay, so why are people creating the monster business versus the freedom practice? And what you can see here is, and this happens every single time, I have a cup here and it's got a teeny tiny little bit of tea in the bottom. Why do I always leave a little bit of tea in the bottom of my cup? Let me know in the chat box. Have a guess. Why do I leave my tea in the bottom of the cup? And I'm using this to prove my point, okay? So why do I leave my tea in the bottom of the cup? Let me know in the chat box. I'm not moving on until someone has a guess. Why is it? Come on, you Brits, you absolutely should know why I leave a teeny tiny bit of tea in the bottom. Yeah, has the yucky leaves at the bottom. I read tea leaves. No, I don't, Jodie, although maybe I should. It's cold. No, Noreen, it's not cold. Okay, so Fazia's got it right. It has the yucky leaves at the bottom. However, it doesn't, does it? Because very rarely now, unless we're going out for afternoon tea, do we have cups of tea where we have the tea leaves. So I did when I was younger, and I have trained myself to leave a little bit of tea in the bottom just in case it's got the tea leaves, but I use a tea bag now. Okay, so my habits now are because of an old way of how I used to do things and how my parents did things and how my grandparents do things. All right, so just like I leave tea in the bottom of the cup, you're still creating monster businesses because, and the reason why you're creating monster businesses is because you're institutionalized, saying that without your teeth in, institutionalized to do so. So school, uni, accounting training, your first manager, everyone is telling you to build a monster business, get more compliance, do more tax returns, and be an accountant. Just like I'm told, or I would trained myself to leave that little bit of tea in the bottom. I don't need to anymore. I'm still doing the old habits, and old habits die hard because I haven't shifted the way that I act when it comes to drinking tea. And you haven't shifted the way that you are thinking about growing an accountancy practice. You're learning from your old managers, your old businesses that you worked with. You're being trained by people. I bet the people who are training you to be an accountant are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. Some are even in their 80s, and they are teaching you to run a practice in a completely different way. So I've come along into the accounting profession, you lucky things, been here nearly 5 years now, and I've come along and I've gone, this is ridiculous the way that you're doing this. This is not making you any money, and you're not providing the value that you can truly provide. So this is what I want you to think about, okay? I want you to go back to first principle thinking. And in layman's terms, first principle thinking is all about actively questioning everything that you know. So when someone tells you this is how to run an accountancy practice, this is what you need to use, you need to be a Xero accountant or a QuickBooks accountant or a cloud accountant. You need to use these technology assets, and you need to have compliance clients, and you need to do their tax, and you need to do their year end. This is what someone has told you. And I want you to go, do I actually need to do this? Do I actually have to run an accountancy practice in this way? Or can I use my knowledge and assumptions to create different things? Okay, so can I, the experience that you have, the knowledge that you have, the letters after your name that you have, the CPD that you do every single year, can it be put to better use so that you can bring more value to the world, and so that you can actually extract more value from people? Okay, so what assumptions can we challenge when it comes to running an accountancy practice? And I'm going to give you some of them now. Okay, most clients only want us to do compliance work. How many of you assume that? If it's a yes, put in a 1. If you feel that most clients only want you to do compliance work. 1, 2 is a no, 1 is a yes. Put it in the chat box. Yeah, most clients want this. So what do you actually have as proof of that? How can we take that back to first principle thinking? Or are you, with the language that you're using and the way that you show up, are you talking about compliance work, and therefore you're attracting people who probably only want you to do compliance work? Okay, we have to work with clients face to face. This slightly has changed over the past couple of years. But do you feel that maybe, clients want to see you face to face? They want to talk to you and they want to have a meeting with you face to face. Okay. What about we have to meet with clients one-to-one to help them? So if you are doing advisory, and if you've been recommended to do advisory, how many of you have been told, oh, you need to meet with them, they'll only talk to you one-on-one, they'll only have a conversation if they speak to the practice owner? All of these are things that we have been told. Our team cannot deliver advisory services. The number of times that I have heard that and had people say to me, had people just like you, I think even maybe a couple of you on the line today, have said to me, oh, my team can't do advisory. They can only do the compliance work. I'm the only one in the practice that can do advisory. Okay. We're capped at how much we charge. How many of you feel capped at how much you charge? Come on. Let's have a look. Who have we got? We've got Ben, Charlotte, Daniel, Fozia, Helen, James, Joanne, Jody, you've logged in twice. You're confusing me. Kevin, Linda, do you feel capped? Okay. All right. We must have a high street presence. This is definitely for the traditional accountancy firm. We know that we don't have to have a high street presence because we've got proof of that. But that's an assumption that up until 2 years ago, we had. And we were enabled to actually have that assumption challenged, and everybody had to go online. And the accounting firm owners who did go online thrived, and those who had a high street presence started to go, do you know what, do I really need to pay a fortune out for an office? Okay. People want to work with a local accountant. That's another assumption that we have. We have to look smart and wear ties. We're seeing a big shift the other way. We're actually just completely random, because accountants are rebelling and are changing this assumption. We're actually seeing accountants being some of the most scrappy people out there. When I walk around accountancy conferences, you've got the traditional accountants in their suit and tie, their grey suit and tie, and then you've got completely the opposite, very little middle ground. You've got the shorts and the hoodies and the tops that people are wearing with their trainers on one side, and then completely the other end with regards to the traditional accountancy firm. But there is still the assumption of we have to look smart and wear ties. And then the other one is we have to be cheap to be competitive. You have to compete on price. All right. So we need to challenge those assumptions. And I have challenged them with my clients. I'm going to share with you a few clients that I've worked with. And I'm not telling you that I have done this with hundreds of clients. I have done this with about 15 clients, and it's changed their world. Okay. So despite the fact that I've worked with 700 clients, when I've got people to shift their mindset and embrace this, it's completely changed their world. But the journey to shift the mindset has been a journey. It took a year or so of trying and testing and measuring until they were like, wow, my profits are through the roof. I'm earning great money and I'm working very few hours. Okay. All right. But what we have to understand is we do not have to be cheap. We don't have to offer compliance, and we don't even have to do advisory in the traditional way. What we want to do is raise your prices, so have higher revenue clients, have higher value services, and own your value, and then sell it in a way that we talk about with leveraged advisory. Okay, so let's have a look at different levels of value. And here's an example of someone who, this isn't an accountant, but someone who helps with time management, okay? And if you were to help someone with time management, and maybe you created an online course that was how to get better at time management, if you were a generalist to everybody and helped with time management for everybody in the world, you'd be able to price that course at maybe £19. It's a guess, I'm just sharing with you, okay? If you were to go a little bit more specialist and said it's time management for sales professionals, you could possibly sell a course for £99. You were to go even more specialist, so time management for outbound B2B sales, you could possibly charge £499. And if you were time management for outbound B2B gardening and power tool sales reps, you could then charge £2,000. Okay, big difference between time management and time management for outbound B2B gardening and power tool sales reps. But what we're doing here is we're becoming more valuable to a certain kind of person. So it's all about that value. All right, let's have a look as an example for an accountancy firm. Okay, so the different levels of value for an accountancy firm, an accountant for everyone. So if you were just an accountant, hey, I can do your year-end tax and I can help you with personal tax, it's £900 a year. Okay, an accountant that works with construction companies could put their average fee up possibly to $2,500 to $3,000. An accountant that does tax planning for construction companies, you can start to charge more. It's where you start to switch over into advisory. But an accountant that works with small renovation contractors that want to take home more pay, you can charge them £12,000 a year because you're going to enable them to take home an extra £50,000 as an example for working with you. Okay, so it's the different levels of value, and the more valuable you are, the more you can charge. Okay, so the more you help someone, the more value you bring, the more you can charge, because value equals transformation. This is Poonam, and Poonam provides virtual finance departments to establish recruiters with 4 or more employees. So she's really niche with what she does and how she helps people. And what she did when she first started working with me, and I really would like you to get out pen and paper, okay? Because this is the process that she went on when she worked with me. She got super clear on who was an ideal client, because she didn't want to be the advisor to everybody, because there's no value as an advisory person to everybody, clearly because you don't understand their business. So she decided to go all in and master one industry. Then what she did was niche down and identified the exact right fit for their firm. So if you are a recruiter with over 4 employees, probably not with 50 employees, but over 4 employees, around the 4 to 10 employees, a great fit for Poonam. Okay, she now attracts A-grade clients, and they pay her $1,000 to $2,000 a month for their services. Okay, so instead of being paid $1,000 a year for helping people, she's getting paid 24 grand a year. Okay, and she has people reaching out to them on LinkedIn inquiring about their services because they are so specialist. All right, she's sending 6 times as many proposals. That's pretty cool, because she's specialist and she understands the value that she provides. All right. Now, the great thing as well about having a deep understanding on who's your ideal client and who you specialize in helping and how you specialize in helping them is you start to get known as an industry leader, and you get known as the go-to for that kind of industry. And you get featured in magazines, you get asked to do webinars like today with Wolters Kluwer. I'm doing a joint venture webinar, and that is because I am super specialist in helping the accounting profession. Okay, so what you need to think about is lots and lots of opportunities come your way, and you can start to have fewer clients and charge more for your services when you are seen as the expert. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at today is providing value and change the way that you run your firm. And the three biggest problems that I see you guys have is, one, the old model of running an accountancy firm is completely outdated. It's where you are the monster business, get as many clients as we can, have a big, huge team, have, working all the hours God sends and getting paid $40 an hour on average across the board. Okay. And the great thing about a monster business 30 years ago is at the end, when you wanted to retire, you could sell that business for a lot of money, and it was worth putting all that effort in, because whilst you may not have taken a huge amount out as you were running it, you could get a nice big paycheck when you wanted to retire. However, it doesn't happen that way. We have seen your retirement payout, if you sell your practice, be 1 times, 1.5 times, 2 times, if you're lucky, of fees, if you are lucky. We have seen it dramatically change. So we can't do the old model and think it's going to be our retirement fund, okay? The other thing as well is when you're running that traditional old model, you're overworked, underpaid, and undervalued. And nothing is worse than working with people that don't value what you do. You are literally just an employee of theirs. If they don't value you, then they're not going to stay with you. They're going to go to your competitors if they're cheaper. And the main thing is when you're underpaid, overworked, undervalued, you're not getting paid the profits that you need. And that's because you're offering a lot of compliance. And those profits don't give you the opportunity to take home enough pay to then invest that pay that you get into wealth building. So not only can you not sell your practice, you also can't take home enough money so that you can build wealth. So you end up earning very, very similar to if you worked in one of the big four. You'd earn 100K, 150K a year. All right. The ability to earn $500,000 a year is not there in a traditional accountancy firm. All right. So how do we create more value so we can create that freedom practice that I've been talking about? Well, what I'm going to share with you today is, one, why there's a ton of money in advisory. And then we're going to take that why there's a lot of money in it and show you the different models of advisory. So what people say is, do compliance or advisory. I'm saying do compliance or advisory in one of 4 ways. All right, one of 4 ways to do advisory. And I'm going to be sharing with you leveraged advisory, which is where I've worked with 10 to 15 of my clients that have successfully done it and changed their lives. Okay. And some of them have left the compliance behind completely. Others have embraced compliance and leveraged advisory. And then the second thing that I'm going to do, because I know that many of you are all about, I want to get higher paying clients, I'm going to give you a money map where step by step, the exact marketing strategies that you need to think about doing so that you can go out and get the high value clients. So there's a lot of kind of, this is what you should be doing. And then I'll show you how to go and get clients. All right. So there's the 2-parter today, and we'll be here probably till about 3 o'clock. So another 30 minutes or so. All right. So part 1 is all about leveraged advisory. And please put your questions into the chat box. All right. I'm definitely here to answer them. And you may have questions around it. So business owners need more value from you. It's as simple as that. If they don't get the value from you, they're going to go and get it from business coaches. Okay, so your biggest competitors are business coaches. And if you don't give them more value, they're going to question you on price, and you're going to be competing with competitors, and you're going to lose your business to the bloke down the road who's going to be £1,000 cheaper than you. So what you need to do is focus on giving value, and that will make you more valuable to them. More value equals more valuable, more valuable, wait for it, equals more income for you. So not just more income for the business, but more income for you personally, take home pay, and a bigger impact in the world, because you're changing people's lives rather than being compliant and just helping them just keep their business afloat. Okay, we want to help people have successful businesses. So why is there a ton of money in advisory? Well, according to research from Bill.com and CPA.com, so this is American research, not UK, okay, but 58.9% of buyers are purchasing advisory or consulting from their accountant. So 58.9% of buyers are purchasing some kind of accounting extra support, so advisory or consulting, and 25% of them are offering themselves as outsourced CFOs. All right. So what we have to understand is, if this is the case, then why aren't you? Because your competitors are out there offering the things that buyers really, truly want. Okay. And if you're offering just bookkeeping and tax prep, you're missing out on I don't know, 40% of the market that really want to have the outsourced virtual CFO and the advisory and the consulting. So when buyers were asked if they would like more from their accountancy practice, they said that they wanted the accountants to understand their business and their industry more. 27% said, I wish that my accountant would understand my business and my industry. So let me know in the chat box, are you a niche accountant? So type in the word niche if you are. If you are not a niche accountant, if you don't have one kind of business, then type in no. So type in niche or no. Okay. Now, if you're not a niche accountant, Ben and Linda and Noreen and Kevin, Molly is niche, yes. And Luke is niche as well. Okay. Molly's niche. So great, you understand your ideal client and they understand that you understand them. But the others of you, kind of, you're letting your team down a little bit, because if you're a generalist, then you don't really understand how someone's business works, the ins and outs of it. If you're giving tax advice, maybe you're going to miss something because you're not a specialist in that kind of business. So we need to get you a niche. You can have a couple of niches and you can have a niche or a specialism of some kind. But if you do that, you will be more valuable and therefore you can charge more for your services. Okay. So whilst other accountants are still pushing traditional compliance, you're going to have a huge advantage if you offer advisory consultancy services to a niche market. Okay, so you have to offer it to a niche market. And this is where it's a real kicker. And I'm saying this with love, my dears. If you think that being a cloud accountant or a Xero specialist or a QuickBooks advisor differentiates you in the marketplace, you're completely wrong. If I type in Xero specialist into LinkedIn, there are thousands of accountants that come up as Xero specialists. Okay. I only have to go to the Xero website to find Xero specialists. All right. And what happens is you fail if you're starting to say we're a QuickBooks specialist or a Xero specialist or we're cloud accountants. You fail to engage your client and share the true value of working with you, because it actually undermines your expertise when you say and put all of your knowledge and your intellectual property is only as good as the tools that you use. That's absolute rubbish, because your CPD is nothing to do with how well you know Xero or QuickBooks or if you're in the cloud. Your CPD is about your knowledge that you've got. So don't do yourself a disservice by putting yourself as a specialist of tools, because actually you're a specialist of growing a business. All right, nag over. Okay, so what really is advisory? Well, I think that there are people out there that kind of try and confuse you with advisory. I think that they try and sell you advisory tools and maybe say you need this and this is the only thing that's going to help you deliver advisory. But if you take it back to first principle thinking of what is advisory, it is literally having the power to make recommendations to your clients, but you don't have to enforce them. It's as simple as that. So you can say to your clients, I recommend that you do this, and your client has to go away and do it. So if you have any knowledge about growing a business, you can become an advisor and help people grow businesses. You don't just have to have the accountancy side. So back to that first principle, what is advisory? You're told you have to do advisory this way. Throw out the rule book. Your advisory is, I'm giving you advice. It's as simple as that. And it can be advice about anything. It could be advice about how to run a property business. It could be advice at how to grow your profits. It could be advice on how to get clients. It could be advice on how to, run a webinar. It doesn't matter. As long as you're giving advice, you are an advisor. Okay. So an advisor or a consultant is a person who gives advice in a particular field. And a consultant is a person who provides expert advice professionally. So I actually think that you are more of consultants than you are of advisors, but that's a whole nother conversation, and we'll stick with what you've been labeled with for a while. Okay. All right. So what can you advise on? The thing that you need to advise on, quite simply, is have a look at where your ideal client is, the pain that they're in now, and then have a look at where they want to be. And your job is to advise on the bit in the middle. So where they are now is they've got no money for bills, no profits in the business. They're unable to pay their team. These are the problems that businesses are having right now and have had for 3 years. Where they want to be is have holiday with the kiddies. They want to pay off the mortgage. They want to possibly sell the business. So your job is to help them get from A to B, paying their in to where they want to be. So you need to bridge that gap. You need to make sure that where they're struggling, you take them to the situation where they want to be. Okay. And when you do that, it means that you have to talk less about compliance work, even on your social media, because compliance work isn't going to get them to be. And then we have to help them overcome their pains and get to where their desires are. All right. So pain they are in now, where they want to be. Okay. So I'm doing this fast. Sorry. What we've got to look at is how do we fill the gap? So where they are now to where they want to be is a hell of a journey for a lot of businesses, especially if they're leaking cash, if they're wasting money, especially if they are unable to pay their bills. And the problem that I see so many accounting firms have is that they literally say, what you need to do is make sure you're compliant. And that doesn't really fill the gap. Okay, so compliance is like the first rung of the offering that you give to businesses. Then we can do reporting. So reporting is, I've got your compliance. Now I'm going to give you a report at the end of the year, and this report is going to tell you your profit and your loss and all this kind of thing. Maybe they can even get that from zero. Like I go into my Zero and run a profit and loss account every single week. So I have my bookkeeper do weekly bookkeeping. She has to get that completed by Friday. And then at 10 o'clock on a Monday morning, I have a meeting with my team and I run my Zero myself. I go through it. I look at what's been paid, what hasn't, how much money's come in. I go into Stripe, see how much money is stuck in Stripe before it's going to get paid over. I go into my bank accounts. I run the profit first system. Every single Monday morning at 10 o'clock, I go through where's my money, where's it come from, who are debtors, who aren't. That's what reporting is. Tell you what, business owners will do that themselves. However, most don't know how to do it. So you can run a report for them, but you can tell them what's happened in the past, which is the next rung. You could then help them predict the future, or you can consult. So where I run my meeting with my team every single Monday at 10 o'clock, you need to be that person, because very few business owners run a business like I do and run the numbers like I do. I was brought up by a tax technician. I am so on my numbers. I can tell you exactly how much money I've got. I've got 10 different bank accounts, 5 for business, 5 for personal. I can tell you to the penny how much I've got in all of them and how much money I'm going to have at the end of the month. Okay, that's a little bit weird. All right, I bet you can't even do that on some of your things. So I am not a typical client. A typical client has no idea what they've got in their bank account. They have no idea how much VAT they need to pay next month. They've got no idea about corporation tax. They have no idea how much money is actually theirs and how much belongs to the government. And you are offering compliance and you're doing them a disservice. So what we want you to do is get as high up in this advisory stroke consulting journey and fill the gaps for them. Okay? Is this landing? Is this making sense? Let me know in the chat box. Vanessa said, is this advisory? We discussed saving tax and increasing net cash via remuneration planning, CT planning, timing of capital allowances, pensions. Yeah, 100% it's advisory. Year-end sales cut-off as standard in our annual compliance service. Are you thinking about something much cleverer? No, I'm not. What I'm saying is you're mislabeling your compliance, sweetheart. Vanessa, you offer advisory. Okay, and what you're doing is you're undermining the value of all of that. Okay, so a typical business owner does not know how to save tax and increase net cash. Simple as that. So you have to advise them. Remember what advisory is. Quite simply, it's giving advice. So anytime you say to them, I recommend, have a look, this is what the numbers say, you are giving advice and you're offering advisory. So we need to pull that out and quote for that in a completely different way, because compliance is making sure that they have their books up to date and that you're crossing the T's and dotting the I's and making sure here in the UK, HMRC are happy and that they're not going to go to prison. That's basically what compliance is, making sure you are compliant. All right. So we need to make sure that you are keeping that at value, because that has a cap on it. Compliance does have a cap on it because you're making sure people are compliant. But the moment you start talking about something different, you're absolutely offering advisory and you need to charge for it. So my question back to you, Vanessa, is how much do you charge for it? I feel unless advisory is packaged with compliance work, you can't charge for it as a regular charge. Absolutely, you can. So, Fozia, back to first principle thinking. Why are you thinking that? Who has told you that? Where have you learned that from? If you were giving advice like a business coach who doesn't do compliance, a business coach charges £1,500 or £2,000 a month to give advice and help people. Why are you thinking you can only give that advice when you offer compliance work? Now, don't get me wrong. The reason why you guys have an advantage over a business coach is because you can understand the numbers and look at the compliance side of things. That gives you actually an unfair advantage over the business coaches. But at the end of the day, you can take that out and you can charge for that separately. How do you set up the advisory engagement letter when you don't want them to expect you to do compliance? You call it business coaching or you call it consulting. When you start to weave it in as accountancy, you'll then be under the accountancy rules. But when you start to say, we also do consulting, would you like our consulting package? That's very, very different. And that doesn't fit under the regular rules and the regulations. However, just double check that with your governing body, just to make sure that because you are part of a body, that you don't have to have something signed off and make sure that it's done properly. All right, just to double check. Okay. So Fezzi says, a meeting for an annual account sign-off where you spent extra time giving business advice bolted on, it is then difficult. Stop giving business advice bolted on. Do the year end where you hand it off and get the accounts and organise another meeting if they want business accounts, Fozia. Take it out. Stop giving it away for free. People don't value free, by the way. People only value what they pay for. All right. So you give it away for free. I've done that. I gave away a 9K program to support people through COVID and people didn't value it. When people pay, they show up and they do the work. So the higher up the consulting advisory journey you are, the more you can charge because you're providing more value. So every time you say to someone, this is some advice I'm giving you, you should be charging for that. Okay, you can give free advice on social media and in your marketing, but every time you say this is advice I'm giving you, you should be charging for it. You should be pulling that out, Fozia. You should not be giving it away for free. All right, we need to bridge the gap. So only sell what the market needs. Don't try and convince the market to do something they don't want to. So you sell people what they want, then you can actually give them what they need afterwards. So if people think that they only want this, but then behind the scenes, maybe you see something else because you understand their business. It's not about what you want. It's about what your ideal client wants. So you might want to offer them something in particular, but they don't need it. So make sure that when you offer advisory, it's what they really, really want. Spice Girls. The higher up the advisory consulting journey, the more impact you're going to make on a client's business. So Fozia, you're signing off the annual accounts and then you're giving advice bolted on. They haven't necessarily seen the value in that advice. They're not necessarily even going to take your advice and implement it, because if they're paying a business coach at the same time, which you'll know because you'll understand their books, but if they're paying a business coach who's offering them this advice, and you then offer them that advice, they're going to listen to the business coach, not you, because they're paying the business coach. So what you need to do is show them that they can have the advisory and consulting from you so that they take the money from the business coach and start paying you that money. And if you don't get paid for it, they're not going to actually action it because they don't value what you're saying. And you could niche to get better at advisory or consulting. So if you're a generalist and you've got a monster business and you've got 100 different clients, you're not going to actually understand their business that well. Understanding a client's business means that you can then give them better advice. All right. So the problem with advisory, now I'm really going to start blowing your mind and hurt your heads. I'm really sorry. And this is a journey, as I say, that you have to go on. You're limited by time with advisory because you have to give advice. So like I'm giving advice here, I'm giving advice to lots of you, Many of you give advice one-on-one, FOSIA, at the end of year-end meeting. You're limited by quality of your team's advisory knowledge. So your team can't do it because maybe they've only ever done compliance and don't have the business growth knowledge that you have. And you're limited by one-to-one service. So you can only help people one-on-one. So let's go back to first principle thinking again. And I'm going to introduce the leveraged advisory superpower, and it's phenomenal. All right. So this is the model for creating a freedom practice. And please don't try and get this in the next 20 minutes. I am very happy to answer questions. I'm very happy if you want to reach out separately. If you haven't got a copy of my book, we need to get that sent out to you because it goes into it in more depth, okay? But this is the model for creating a freedom practice. So at the beginning, we have a generalist compliance practice, which will be the majority of you, okay? Then what we have is niche compliance. So you've got people like me, marketers going, you need to practice. And people go, oh, okay, well, I'm going to specialize in contractors, or I'm going to specialize in marketing agencies. That's the next level. Then what we have is one-to-one niche advisory. So people will be like, oh, I'm going to be an advisor and I'm going to give advice to either a group of people that are, you know, lots of different people, or the niche advisory that we say. So this is the journey that you go on. Okay, now the problem with generalist and compliance is that you're limited with your profit. So whether or not you're offering compliance to a niche or to a generalist, you're really not going to be able to squeeze out those profits and have that take-home pay you want. It's where you're creating the monster business. If you're doing one-on-one general or niche advisory, you're time limited because you're working with people one-on-one. Okay, so here's a different option. All right, and again, just to get your head around it. We've got office hours and FAQ, frequently asked questions library. So what's going to happen is, for example, Fozia, and I know I'm picking on you, but you kindly shared with me, all right? Maybe someone wants some advice on how to read their profit and loss. Once you start sharing how to read your profit and loss on Xero, for example, you're going into giving advice. You're sharing your knowledge and you're giving advice. And you might do that with 3 clients in 1 week and give the same advice because they're asking the same questions. So what I would like to encourage you to do is once a month, once a week, once every 2 weeks, you know, once a day, if you've got a really, really big business, is have a way for an hour every single day that your clients can phone in. You can be on a Zoom call, okay? They can log into Zoom and they can ask you questions. And these questions are, you know, other people might be on the Zoom call, but there is a way where people can come in and they can ask you a question. And it's a set time. So you're not there answering emails all day and you're not there having to answer phone calls, but you're in a Zoom room once a day, once a week, once a month, answering those questions. And every time someone has a question, you say, come to our office hours, which are on this date between these times, and I'll answer it there. Or if you don't want to do that and the thought of that gives you the heebie-jeebies, then what you can do is you can record videos, Loom videos, on how to do things so that you can then send them through a Loom video rather than having to jump on a call or having to do an individual video for each of your clients, okay? So that's the first level of leveraged advisory, where you're leveraging your time. The second level is what I call masterminds. And masterminds is where you get a group of your clients together once a month, okay, or even once a quarter if you don't want to do it once a month. And in that mastermind, you are a facilitator and you say to everyone, what is your challenge? And you have 8 people in a group and you go round that group and you say, what's your challenge? And the other people in the group answer their challenge. So you don't have to be the font of all knowledge. You can just host a mastermind. And it's a great opportunity for clients to network. If you are a generalist practice, actually having a mastermind with different businesses all at a similar level in revenue, for example, or similar level in number of team members or something like that, but you have them in a room together asking questions and you facilitate it. Now, this has nothing to do with compliance. It's about helping them grow and scale a business, all right? When you run a mastermind, you might charge them £500 a month for that. And it might take you 3 hours a month. So £500, 8 people, that's £4,000 a month. That's 50 grand a year for 4 hours work a month. Okay. So 12, 24, 36, 48, that's £1,000 an hour that you are earning. I think that's right off the top of my head. My maths isn't great. Okay. I don't profess to be an accountant. All right. So you're earning £1,000 an hour. If you have 2 masterminds, okay, you could then have 2 groups of 8. Then you're earning 100K a year. That pretty much is your money. And you don't have to even grow an accountant's practice. Just an idea there. All right. Then the next level is online group consulting. And this is what I do. I run a momentum program for accountants and bookkeepers, and we have online groups. So I have training in a portal, and then twice a week we get together. We have one session that's masterminding, which is less about me, and then we have one Q&A session. And I have 50 people in that group, and they each pay me 10K a year. And it's a great little business, and I have very, very high profit margins, and I transform everybody's life in that group. Okay, so it works really, really well. Now, this is called leveraged advisory. Your profits are up, your time in the business is down, and you are taking home more pay. Okay, Carla, yes, there will be a replay. All right. So this is what we call leveraged advisory, the office hours, masterminds, and online group consulting. And this is how you take your advisory and deliver it in a very different way. Okay. So how do you fill that gap? How do you know where the person is like, I can't afford to pay myself. I can't afford to pay my team. I don't know how to get money out of my business. I can't afford VAT. I don't know where all my money's gone, all this kind of things. Okay. I don't know how I'm going to pay for Christmas. All of these pains, how do we then fill the gap so they go, I'm happy, wealthy, and free? Okay, how do we take the lady that's awake at 3 o'clock in the morning and go, I'm happy, wealthy, and free? All right, how do we fill that gap? Well, the way that we fill that gap is getting really clear on the pains that they go through. Okay, Vanessa, I'm going to answer your question in a minute. All right, so the pains that people have gone through and the journey that people need to go from those pains where she's awake at 3 in the morning all the way through to I'm happy, wealthy, and free. What are the different strategies that you need to help them with? And what you do is you map out all those different strategies to enable them to get to I'm happy, wealthy, and free. Okay, so Vanessa said, how do we get around confidentiality issues if you do not stay with one-to-one? So that 80% of your business, 80% of the advice that you give a business does not have to be specific on the numbers that is going on in their business. Okay, it doesn't have to go really, really deep. You can actually advise one-to-many very easily. I work with accountants every single day. Like, you guys are the most reserved people I've ever worked with in my entire life, yet you're happy to share some really interesting things in a group, and it comes from trust. So if you go down the mastermind section where there's only 8 people in each group, that group actually, they all become their confidants and they're very happy to share. And then what you can do is you can set up a WhatsApp channel, and instead of having to pick up the phone or answer emails and all that kind of thing, you can have a WhatsApp channel specifically for that final 20% that really needs to be private. Although I think, let's go back to first principle thinking. What is it exactly that you're telling them that's so private that they wouldn't want to share with anybody else? Very, very rarely is it that private. Okay, I don't think there's anything that I wouldn't want to share with another business owner if I trusted the other people in the room. Okay, so anyway, to get someone from where they're like fast, like, oh my God, so stressed, it's horrible, all the way through to I'm happy, wealthy, and free, what are the strategies that you need to take them through to make that happen? When you've mapped that out, the process, the things that they need help with, you can then create the leveraged advisory model that you want. Now, here's an example of Nishi. He's in my momentum program, okay? And you can see here, he's got 3 milestones that he takes his clients through: awareness, assistance, and alignment. And he's got the 9 strategies around the outside. So the first thing that he does with his clients is look at the business model that they have. Then he runs reports, helps them with cash flow, helps them with accounting, tax, and efficiency. So this is quite compliance-based still. Then he has weekly Q&As. He has a course which is Millionaire. I can't remember what it is now, but it's basically enables you to have £1 million exit or something, that valuation, £1 million valuation. And he also has quarterly planning. So the way that Nishi does his business, he charges £600 a month And then once a quarter, he has a planning session in a room with 20 to 30 different people of his clients. Okay. They still have compliance with him, but he's pulled out the leverage advisory. They get together in a room and he has weekly Q&As where 2 or 3 people once a week will show up and ask him questions. And his time in the business has gone down so much that his time to do marketing has gone through the roof, and he's scaling what he now calls his Apex program. Okay, so he's looked at everything his clients needed to achieve and the outcome they wanted. He's packaged up the services into a step-by-step process. He's turned it into a visual model. He's sold it to 20 current clients at 500. That's now actually 600 a month. And he's added probably about now 150 to 200 in additional revenue within 12 months, okay? And all of that is profit because his team doesn't deliver it, all right? He then turned his process into leverage advisory, and he now earns about £3,000 for an hour's work, okay? Vanessa, what that question's a really good question. And when I run the Momentum program, we have a scale session on a Thursday. And that's a really good question to ask in the scale session, because you have people who are doing this and can advise you around it, okay, who are qualified and are accountants and need to give you the right advice around that. Okay. All right, so £2,000 plus an hour is achieved through productizing what you do, which is what Nishi's done, and then leveraging your advisory delivery model. Okay, who likes this idea? Let me know in the chat box. Love it. Type love it in the chat box if you like the idea. Remember, go understand it's a journey because it's a new idea for you. Molly loves it. Great. Anybody else love it? Or anybody else going, no, this is horrible. It's really scary. I know it's scary. It probably is scary, actually. You're probably looking at it going, this all sounds great, but how many of you are saying but? Got a few love it's, definitely, says Noreen. Kevin says love it. Okay, great. So once we have taken this, we then have to sell it. So what I want to talk to you about is how to build a practice and do the marketing side. And I'm only going to be another 5 minutes or so don't panic. I'm not going to keep you forever. But I want you to think about, how do you build a practice that is a motor car? So if you think about Henry Ford, he one of his famous sayings is, if I'd asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So if I ask you what you want, you would say to me, I want to charge more for my work. And I'm like, oh, don't charge more for what you do already. Let's do something completely different and create a different model. All right. So I want you to build a motor car. I don't want you to build a faster horse. And having watched my father, he's a tax technician, build his own business, he just wanted a faster and faster horse, which meant more and more clients, more and more team, and less money. All right. So we're going to build the motor car. So this is how you get the advisory client. So it's all well and good building that practice, the freedom practice. How do we get clients? Well, first of all, we have to work out how much do we want to charge for working with clients in this way. And this is where we can actually do the subscription service. So you can charge anything from £250 to £2,000 for these services a month. All right. And what we try and do in Momentum is get you 3 clients a month onto a leverage advisory model. And the 3 clients a month, if at the end of the year you got 3 clients a month and you were charging them £250 a month, you would have added £9,000 a month in recurring revenue at the end of 12 months. At the end of 3 years, you'll be up to 27,000 recurring revenue. If, though, you decided, like Nishi has done, to charge £500-600 a month, at the end of 12 months, you'll be having recurring revenue of 18 grand a month. And at the end of 3 years, you'll have a revenue of over £500,000. So at the end of 3 years, you'll create a £500,000 business. If you did that for another 2 more years, you would have over £1 million business. Okay. If you want to charge 2 grand a month, then you're starting to really position yourself as an expert. So you really need to understand an ideal client's model. 2 grand a month is where you have to be super niche and you have to advise on a lot of things that help people build wealth as well. But at the end of 3 years, you could have a £2.1 million business if you're charging 2 grand a month, getting 3 clients a month. Now, you can't do that if you're offering traditional advisory. You don't have the capacity. But if you're offering leveraged advisory, you 100% have the capacity. Okay. All right. So hopefully the sweet spot is between 500 and 1,000. And that means that you'll earn somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million within 3 years, like clockwork, taking on 3 clients. So how do we get 3 clients? Well, I talk about the money map, okay? And the money map it's like a sandwich, all right? So either side of the money-making bit, you've got the foundations, and the foundations is where you have to have a clear ideal client, a clear brand offering, and a clear offer. And before I go any further, I just want to check in with Steph if we're okay for time, because I might go 5 minutes over here.
Steph, yeah, that's okay by me if people are okay to hang on.
Fab. All right. So at the top of the money map, we have the foundations. Get clear on who your audience is, get clear on your brand, what differentiates you, your positioning in the marketplace, and get clear on your offer. Okay. At the bottom of the money map, we have client enrollment. So it's where we get people to apply to work with you. We have a strategy session, and either we convert them or we follow up. Now, this sounds great because everyone says, oh, well, I know who my client is. This is my offering, and I'm going to have sales calls. They don't know how to get someone from this is my ideal client to how to get sales calls. So I'm just going to share quickly the money map with you. All right. So the first thing that we have to do is attract clients to us. The next thing that we have to do is turn those ideal clients into what we call a lead. And a lead is where they're like, ooh, they're hanging around, they're having a bit of a sniff around you, and they look like they might be interested in working with you. And then what we have to do is, if they look like they're interested in working with you, we have to nurture them to get them into a call with you. All right. So let's have a look at client attraction stage. Client attraction is all about creating organic content online. Building relationships and partnerships is a great example, okay? So I'm glad that this is a joint venture webinar because this is a partnership. So I've created content online. Then I've created a great partnership with Wolters Kluwer, okay? And then to get myself in front of even more people, I can do paid advertising. But actually, paid advertising isn't needed if you get organic content and partnerships right, because you're only taking on 3 clients a month. Paid advertising works when, if you want to do what I wanted to do, which was take on 150 clients in a week, that's when you leverage through paid advertising. From that, we have lead generation. So leads are where we get someone's email address and we can actually start to build a relationship with them. So lead generation, you can give away a free guide. You can do a webinar or a VSL, which is classed as a video sales letter, or you can have a free community, so a nice Facebook group, or you can have all 3. The more you do, the more you're going to build your brand. However, when you start doing this, you want one clear avatar, you want to choose organic content probably to start getting known, and offer a free guide or a free video, something like that, okay? You don't have to do all of this. Then from that, we then have to nurture our audience, and we do that through email marketing. That's a given. You have to send at least 1 email a week to prospects, okay? You keep doing the organic content and running webinars, and then when the time is right, someone will go from a webinar, they'll go to your website, maybe book a call, or from the webinar, you can post a link and say, hey, book a call with me. Okay, then you get them into client enrollment. This is where they have an audition call, which is a short 10-minute call, a strategy session, and then they convert or follow up. Okay, have we got any questions? Because I really squeezed that last bit in very, very quickly. But that's kind of that there. If you look at that money map is how to grow a business. Okay. And one of the things that I failed to say, actually, when Nishi did he's still in my momentum program. He's been with me for nearly 2 years now. When Nishi's in my momentum program, everything that he learns in momentum, he puts into his Apex program. So he's learned it, he's implemented it, he now teaches it. So his advisory is less accounting and more business growth. And at his quarterly planning, I'm actually going to give a talk at his quarterly planning session, because he gets in visitors to give a talk so that he doesn't actually have to come up with the content. Okay, so let's just have a quick look and bring it all together. A freedom practice in the middle. Okay, you need to attract your right clients, not the vampire clients, the right clients. You then need to convert them into high paying clients, and then you need to scale your practice. So attract and convert is all about the money map. All right, you have to implement the money map, and to scale your advisory and do it in a very different way, leveraged advisory. And we've actually trademarked that term because it is such a great thing. And the thing that I'm doing with my clients is phenomenal. Okay, but we want to introduce leveraged advisory if you want to have fewer clients, charge more money, and transform their lives. Okay, so are there any questions? If you've got a question, put it in the chat box. If not, I would like T for takeaway. Put in the chat box what has been an aha moment from today. If you've got a question, put in a question. But what has been an aha moment from today? What's something that you could action or has made you think? Ben says this is not a 2-minute answer, I know, but how do you move from a monster business to a freedom business when you feel like you have no spare time right now and you already have a monster? Yeah, I get that totally. And it's not a 2-minute answer, but it kind of is as well. And there's a couple of things that you need to do. One is what we call a CDS. So a CDS is a cut, delegate, and systemize. And what you need to do is you and your team need to spend 2 weeks monitoring everything that you are doing, and you need to go through everything and either cut it out, delegate it to somebody, or systemize it so that you can streamline how your business works. That's one thing that you need to do. A second thing that you need to do is understand that you might have to take a step backwards to take a step forwards financially, which means getting rid of all of the vampire clients, the ones that suck the life out of you. And that is traditionally accounting speak, grade your clients A, B, C, Ds, and all the C's and Ds you're going to have to get rid of. And you can either send them to your competitors if you want to drive them nuts, or you could actually sell them to somebody. So whilst you're getting rid of them, you could get an injection of cash if you sell them. So there's 2 things that I've given you there. One is systemizing the practice as much as you can, and that's cut, delegating, systemize. And then the second thing is understand that you might have to lose a bit of cash to then make a bit of cash. But if you got rid of maybe 5 monster clients that pay you $1,000 a year, you only need 1 or 2 freedom clients to cover the 5 that you've got rid of. Okay. Vanessa's takeaway is I'm almost doing more advisory than compliance already for free. Yeah. So Vanessa, that's madness, right? You got to stop that, sweetheart. Because if you give stuff away for free, people won't value it. And they will eventually go and pay a business coach because they're not implementing what you're telling them because you're giving it away for free. So start charging for that stuff and stop talking. And I know it's the hardest thing in the world because you want to help people. You know that you have an answer. Next time you go to say something, say, I actually offer business advisory as well as what I've done with you here. Would you like me to explain how that works? And they'll go, yes, please, because that's interesting. You'll explain how it works and you'll put a price on it. Okay. Noreen has said, I like the idea of masterminds and online group consulting. It's amazing. Noreen, don't just like the idea, go implement it. If you want some help, then know where I am. Ben says, very helpful. Linda says, free advisory that has already been given. Have to go and collect some. Looking forward to going back through this. Yeah, do go back through it. Like I've given you loads of info. All right, Steph, I think that's me, over and out. Okay.
Yes, lovely. Thank you so much for closing off your series with style. Lots and lots of information to think about.
Yeah, there's loads. It's a whole new way of thinking. It's like, it's kind of, I feel like instead of closing it, I've opened up a can of worms. There we go.
Indeed. So thank you so much for everyone who stuck with it. I know we've run over by 5 minutes, but I think it was a worthy 5 minutes. So we will send you this recording. Amanda kindly shared her slides, so I will share those with you as well. And Amanda, if there's another book, or if I just send them the same link to the books
Practice Growth Superpowers goes into this in more depth. So if you could send them that link, that would be amazing, and we can get that sent out to them. That would be perfect. That would be awesome. Thank you, Steph.
Yeah. Absolutely. And all's left for me to do is thank you so much for Amanda for another brilliant session. We hope to do more with you next year.
Oh, 100%. I love it. This is my favorite thing to talk about. Let's just change the profession, shall we? Like, let's take it all back and just recreate it so that it's great for you and great for your clients, because the traditional way of doing things is hard blimmin' work for the lot of you. So yes, and thank you for organising them, Steph. So
great.
All right.
Well, everybody, we will leave it there, but enjoy the rest of your days.
Enjoy your day. See you later.
Bye.